crash. Cancer is not a single disease. After you watch this short video, you'll better understand that there are hundreds of different types of cancers that can affect all the tissues and all the organs in the body. And there are many different causes of cancer, including genetic defects, viruses, the HPV virus, human papillomavirus. Strains of it have been shown to cause cervical cancer, chemical exposure, exposure to radiation, and sometimes it just happens. Sometimes there are spontaneous mutations that lead to the development of cancer. Apoptosis is another name for programmed cell death. Normally, cell growth is carefully regulated. Cells have a program within them that tells them when they're supposed to die. Red blood cells last about 3 months and are then replaced in the bone marrow by new red blood cells. The cells inside your mouth and your stomach are replaced every 3 days. So normally cell growth is carefully regulated. There are internal signals that tell cells when they're supposed to die, and there are external signals, the neighboring cells that send out signals to slow down the growth of cells. Apoptosis is programmed cell death. What happens during cancer is that cells ignore this program. They do not die, and they just continue to divide and divide and divide. There are what we call drivers of cancer. For example, proto-oncogenes. These are the type of genes that are involved in normal growth and division, but when they become altered, they become oncogenes. Proto-oncogenes are vulnerable to change, and when they become oncogenes, onco is a prefix for cancer, these genes then code for proteins that are mutated and can become cancerous. There are tumor suppressor genes that are also involved in controlling growth and division of cells. Cells with alterations in tumor suppressor genes may divide in an uncontrolled manner. And then there are DNA repair genes. We have genes that fix damaged DNA, but cells with mutations in these types of genes tend to develop mutations in other genes. And when the mutations that lead to cancer are not fixed, they're allowed to grow, and cancer can develop. So cancer is a disruption in the orderly growth of cells within the body. Internal regulation fails in that the proteins that normally suppress growth are no longer being produced. So these suppressor genes that normally curb growth stop working, and they allow cancer cells to form. For example, the BRCA gene is a tumor suppressor gene, and when it is mutated, cancer is then able to grow. External regulation fails. Transformed cells may no longer be affected by signals from neighboring cells that attempt to tell them to stop growing. They may no longer have the receptors that send out signals that tell cells to stop growing. They become what I call bad listeners. They don't listen to their neighboring cells, and they just keep growing and invade other neighborhoods, if you will. And they lead to the formation of malignant or cancerous tumors. A typical body contains about 100 trillion cells, and healthy cells divide to replace the cells that die. Carcinogenesis, genesis, creation of, CARCINO is a prefix for cancer. Carcinogenesis, formation of cancer. We have normal cells that may become abnormal cells by a process of initiation. This initiation can be caused by environmental agents, viruses, X-rays, ultraviolet light. These were mentioned in a previous slide, and they can form abnormal cells. We have many processes inside the body that can reverse or repair these mutations. But if they don't work, then there's what's called the promotion phase of carcinogenesis. More cell damage, more cell division, again, because these cells are no longer listening to the apoptosis, to the program that tells them to die. The promotion phase can last for years. It can progress. This uncontrolled growth can continue to form the formation of tumors. If those tumors continue to grow, they may metastasize. Metastasis is what occurs when a cell breaks off from the original tumor from the site of origin, goes into the bloodstream or the lymphatic system, and spreads to other parts of the body. Now, metastasis is what occurs in what are called solid tumors, tumors of the brain or the breast or the lung or the prostate. Metastasis is not what occurs when someone has lymphoma or leukemia. These are blood cancers. Carcinogens are external cancer-causing agents. About half of Americans may develop cancer about 3/4 after the age of 55. And as I just said, metastasis is the transport and regrowth of cells from the primary tumor to other parts of the body. Angiogenesis is the creation of new blood vessels that provide the tumor, the cancer cells, with nutrients and remove waste products, enabling those cancer cells to continue to grow and create larger tumors and possibly metastasize. The risk of death by many cancers may be reduced by adopting behaviors, healthy behaviors. Physical activity, don't smoke, just don't. Eating as healthy as possible. Regular screenings may help reduce death. What I mentioned earlier, though, is that there are controversies concerning certain types of screenings. We'll talk about this in our discussion in class. Early detection and treatment may be critical to surviving certain types of cancer. It is important to know early signs and symptoms, and for some, self-exams and screenings. The ones I would recommend for your demographic would be skin cancer screenings, and I'll talk more about that when we talk about skin cancer. But I am curious to know what you think about the early detection and treatment after discussing lead time bias.